Story 1. Papa's Gonna Buy You a Mockingbird. My dad sang this to my mom when she was suffering from a severe traumatic brain injury. They were 80 and he had dementia. It was the sweetest and saddest thing I have ever seen. They both passed away from this earth a year and a half apart within the next couple of years. This was 12 and 10 years ago. I am 56. This still breaks me every time I hear it. Story 2. Take It on the Run by REO Speedwagon. I used to sing this song and play the drums to it on Rock Band, while my mom played the guitar. I was probably between ages 4 and 6 at that time. Story 3. Don't Laugh, but the Winnie the Pooh song 100 Acre Wood. I sang it to my son, and his little girl is a big Winnie the Pooh fan now. Story 4. The last time I ate donuts at the fair with my mother before her suicide, I was 10, I think. The song was Barely Breathing by Duncan Sheik. I can see my cousin and her mother together in the memory too. It was a wonderful day. Story 5. Don't Speak is forever attached to the death of my horse. You and me, we used to be together every day, always. I really feel that I am losing my best friend. I can't believe this could be the end. I lost my horse when she was 34 years old. She was older than I was, but she was my best friend and the center of my young adult life. I bought her, paid for her care, and worked with her every single day during some of the best times of my life. I was completely horse poor. This song kept coming on the station while I was driving out to take care of her. No joke. I have tears coming down my face right now. I started crying as soon as I heard the words in my head. Story 6. I heard the most beautiful piano tune 10 years ago on public radio, but I was so groggy that I never got the song title. Story 7. Everything Counts in Large Amounts, Depeche Mode. My first high school boyfriend and I decided it was our song. Story 8. The Jurassic Park Journey to the Island played on car rides when all of my grandparents died and when my brother died. I am listening to it now. I am tired of it, but I can now sing it in doo-doos perfectly. Story 9. Like a Prayer will always be linked to watching Deadpool and Wolverine in theaters with my then boyfriend and his family. It resurrected my love for movies. Story 10. Paradise by the Dashboard Light. My dad tried to have the talk with me using this song to break the ice about it. Story 11. Make It With You by Bread is tied to a memory of being a kid in a car at a drive-in movie. I had just been to the big playground in front of the screen. I had popcorn, soda, and big pillows in the back seat. That song was playing on the in-car speakers as we waited for the movie to start, and all was well with the world. Story 12. I was 11 or 12 going through hell at home. Mom was always drinking. It was Christmas Day, or maybe the day before, and I came home from school to find nobody there. All there were empty wine and beer bottles and cigarette butts everywhere. I was so angry and hurt. I grabbed bottles and started throwing them out onto the street. Then I went inside and opened my few Christmas presents by myself. One of the gifts was Guitar Hero World Tour for the PlayStation 2. I set it up and played all night. I had experience from Guitar Hero 3. One of the songs I remember was that one, Jimmy Eat World, the middle. It related to how I felt. I was an outcast, and I struggled with socializing and focusing at school because of my rough home life. Listen to the song. You'll understand why it brought me so much comfort. Even now, it does. Story 13. Led Zeppelin Whole Lotta Love. I listened to it at a house party where I first drank alcohol, smoked marijuana, and had my first sexual experience. At the time, it felt like the song lasted for hours. Story 14. Butterfly Kisses. My father is no longer the same man who raised me. He is hurtful and far too quick to judge for no reason at all, especially knowing who I am, considering the context. It is so disappointing that the man I grew up thinking was my hero turned out like this. I miss my father. Story 15. Simple Gifts. I went to a Quaker day school most summers during primary school. We would sing it as a round, and I can hear it echoing off the walls of a building that probably is no longer standing. They were good and fair people, and I had no reason not to trust any of them. Story 16. I cannot remember the name of the song or the artist, but it was a rapper whose demo tape I bought off MySpace. He heavily sampled Three Doors Down's Here Without You and sped up the chorus by 1.5 times. The song was an absolute banger to me. Story 17. Wings for Marie by Tool is a song I listened to a lot when I lost a grandparent I was close to. The anguish the singer put into it helped me grieve properly. Judith is another song by the same singer, but with a different band. These days, when I listen to either song, I remember my grandparent and it feels comforting. Story 18. Calling You by Blue October. My husband and I met in AOL times. El Paso by Marty Robbins, my grandfather. The Birds and the Bees by Jewel Akins, when I realized what it meant and the continued knowledge after the fact for other songs and shows. Story 19, Domini Kira, and then several others because, although fandom-based, it is a very aggressive core memory. Story 20, She's Always a Woman to Me by Billy Joel. It was one of my father's signature songs he would sing and also performed every year for my birthday. I miss him so much. Story 21. Aside from the sad memory I shared, there is also Pachelbel's Canon in D playing on a record player. I did plies to it in ballet classes 6 days a week for years until I got into a school with live pianists. Story 22. Father and Son. When I was a kid, my dad would always play this song with his guitar. I recently bought a guitar and it is the first song I am learning. Story 23. Savage Garden, Truly Madly Deeply. It was supposed to be the opening slow dance at my wedding. My relationship ended 4 months before the wedding date. That song still hurts. Story 24. Elvira by the Oak Ridge Boys. This was the first song I learned the lyrics of. It was my favorite song when I was little. I remember listening to this song on the way to the cottage with my dad. Story 25. Genesis, I Can't Dance. It was the first music video I remember seeing, and I thought it was the coolest, funniest thing in the entire world. I was 7 years old. I remember standing in front of the TV trying to do the walk just like them. Anytime that video came on, I flew into the living room wearing my dad's suit jacket and a pair of big bird sunglasses. The only ones I had, to really capture the look. I have been a devoted fan of Genesis ever since. Story 26. Most of the good ones? But for real, I have a playlist with over 700 songs, and many of them I've used to create memories, rather than looking backward in time. A good song you are playing over the speakers at your random job might make a stranger have a really emotional reaction and come to compliment or hug you. Now you have a beautiful new memory. I learned this both as a college radio DJ and while working retail jobs. If you can get permission to play music, you can control the ambience of a room pretty easily, and then humble brag that, yes, it's your music. Thank you. Story 27. TLC. Do Not Go Chasing Waterfalls and Tracy Chapman. Give me one reason. I loved singing along to those with my mom in the 1990s when I was little. Life was so different back then, and our relationship was so pure. I cherish those songs. Story 28. Alter Bridge in Loving Memory. I randomly listened to it the night my grandfather was buried in 2005 and have never been able to listen to it since. Story 29. That's Easy. I can hardly stand it by the Cramps. My dad bought me my first guitar when I was about 8 years old. He taught me the twang you hear in the intro and throughout the song. I think about that every time I hear the song. Also, Dads Are Turds. Story 30. This is the song that never ends. If you could not tell by my pick, I was both the youngest and most annoying sibling. Story 31. Daylight by Matthew and Kimberly. My husband of 10 years and I used to listen to it while we drove around in his pickup truck in high school. Story 32. A few years ago, my husband and I finally got to go to Spain. While looking around La Sagrada Familia, my husband could see how awed I was by it. He played Radiohead's Everything in Its Right Place and placed an earbud in my ear. He said that would help it stick in my memory. It did, and somehow I fell even more in love with him than I already was. Story 33. Blackbird by the Beatles is one of my dad's favorite songs. He used to play it on the guitar regularly when I was a child. My earliest childhood memory is lying in my crib as a young toddler of about 2 years, put down to sleep for the night, and my dad in the adjacent room softly strumming Blackbird on his acoustic guitar and singing the lyrics in a mildly hushed voice. It was the most calming and comforting sound, and I remember how safe I felt lying there in the half-dark. To this day, Anytime I hear that song, it evokes in me a wave of wistful serenity. Story 34. I Will Follow You Into the Dark by Death Cab for Cutie will always remind me of slipping away into death as my ex-fiancé held my hand and sang it to me while I was rapidly fading due to an overdose of fentanyl while trying to treat an ectopic pregnancy. Story 35. My wife and I were on our third or fourth date at the time, and a remix came on at the restaurant we were in. I didn't recognize it, but when she said it, I knew the name from the Anyways, Here's Wonderwall meme. We determined that I was musically illiterate, and she made a playlist for me called by the same meme name. It was over 13 hours long by the time she was done. Story 36. When there was tornadic weather, my parents would put my sisters and me in the bathtub and play Enya songs to cover up the high wind sounds. My older sister caught on to what they were doing and started shouting, "It's the tornado song! They're playing the tornado song!" So obviously, my little sister and I would start sobbing since we were toddlers. Good times, good times. Story 37. Wonderwall by Oasis and Good Riddance by Green Day. We sang them on the beach one summer night as teenagers. A friend played the guitar and the rest of us sang. Just kids having fun in the moonlight, no phones, beautiful night, pure magic. That night, one of our friends left to go watch The Secret Life of the American Teenager with his girlfriend and crashed into a tree, dying on the way home. Anytime I hear that song, every single memory of that beautiful night that turned absolutely horrible comes back. Story 38. Dreamweaver. Every time I hear it, I remember when I was a kid, floating and spinning from laughing gas as I lay in the dentist's chair, getting ready to have a tooth pulled. Story 39. I can't remember the exact song title, but the Doodlebops were singing La 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 while my dog was being attacked by a pit bull. I just stood there crying and watched. I told myself I would never listen to it again, but I accidentally heard it again years later. It is a catchy song, though. Story 40. Leshan Buddha, the violin song from the movie Abominable. Long story. I cried for my father for the first time in over 10 years on my way to see that movie. That scene and song made me hysterical in the theater. Story 41. Losing My Religion was a big hit around the time I was in 8th grade or freshman year. For some reason, I really associate it with going to the pool. Hearing that song puts me in the bright sunshine, looking at the water and all the kids. Kind of weird when you think of it. Story 42. Santa Wear Your Shorts by the original High Five. I watched the concert on Christmas Eve when I was younger, and now it is not Christmas without the High Five Christmas concert playing for most of December. Story 43. Maggie May by Rod Stewart. My horrible supervisor made me pick up bagels for him every morning. This song was playing on the radio constantly. Story 44. Wish You Were Here by Pink Floyd. My mom talks about her older brother who passed away in the late 1990s. I can't hear it without thinking of her talking about him and how, to this day, she truly misses him. Loss is very difficult. Story 45. Now, the world does not move to the beat of just one drum. What might be right for you may not be right for someone else. Story 46. The entire Hybrid Theory album is linked to Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 on Game Boy Color. Since the Game Boy version did not have actual music, I listened to that CD while I played. Story 47. As I Lay Me Down by Sophie B. Hawkins was the bar warm-up song one of my ballet teachers used when I was little. That song immediately transports me back to how it felt to be a kid in the dance studio. Story 48. The First Time I Ever Saw Your Face, Roberta Flack. I was in a bad car accident, and while I was lying in the car waiting for help, that was the song playing on the radio that was somehow still working. Story 49. My mother played the piano occasionally when I was young, and the one piece she played that stayed with me was Claire de Lune. If I hear the first note or three, I immediately well up with tears and I am a goner. It was very hard to watch Everything Everywhere all at once. Sounds and smells are powerful, aren't they? Story 50. All I Want Is You by U2. What I consider our wedding song, as we saw U2 the night after our wedding, and I heard the song for the first time that night and it clicked. Bono spoke about how it is a wedding song from the wife's point of view, and it really is perfect. Story 51. Sweet child of mine, working in the cornfields in Nebraska in the late 1980s. You can just smell the pollen and mud and feel the humid heat. Good times. Story 52. Love Will Keep Us Alive by the Eagles. I first heard it on the day my partner and I said, I love you, and it became our song. Story 53. Always thought that it captured perfectly how I felt inside as a kid and teenager. The depression was real. The drugs have mostly fixed it. Story 54. Is he worthy? Chris Tomlin. We had just had a week of sorrow. We miscarried twins. We finally had a day of life, Easter. We heard a whole sermon about life and joy. This was the final song for the day. Soloist. Do you feel the world is broken? Choir. We do. My wife and I cried through the entire song. 3 years later, my first solo in 20 years. Same song. I will never be as moved by a song as I am by that one. Do you know that all the dark won't stop the light from getting through? We do. Story 55. I have two. One for my mom, which is Warren Zevon's Keep Me in Your Heart, which we played at my mom's funeral. For me, this was my mom. She was amazing. We also played a game called World of Warcraft with a close friend of Warren. My second song is by Bread, Everything I Own, which David Gates wrote for his dad, who passed away. We played it at my dad's funeral. My dad would give us everything, even when he was struggling. We kids never suffered. He was always giving us his everything. I would give anything I own to have him back again. Story 56. Kiss from a Rose by Seal. Walking into a high school dance and seeing the boy who had just broken up with me the day before dancing with someone else. I could feel my heart break for the first time that day and am taken back every time I hear that song. Story 57. My Sweet Lord. I gifted the box set All Things Must Pass to 3 different girls for Christmas the year it came out. Each was grateful in their own way. Story 58. Lou Freak. Chic. My sister had a record player in her room. She was 7 years older than me. She was the coolest. I just wanted to hang out in that room with her all the time and listen to music. Story 59. Lilipichu's Dreamy Night. I was not in a very good place and would listen to it on loop at night while sleeping on the couch. It was one of the only things that could give me comfort at the time, so it now brings back a lot of bittersweet feelings. Story 60. There is a concert venue next to the closest emergency veterinarian in my area. Ray Shremmerd was playing that No-type song as we were taking my late childhood dog there during her final hours. I could hear it from the parking lot. I still miss her to this day. She was a rough collie. Story 61. It's Kanlungan by Noel Kabangan for me. Ever since I was a kid, that's what I sang the most while watching the skies at sunset. Story 62. Thank You by Led Zeppelin. My husband and my wedding song. He passed away 21 years ago, and the song still brings me to tears every time I hear it. Story 63. Anything by Shakira. One day I was visiting my grandfather and saw he had a DVD of one of her concerts. It surprised me because before this, he had mostly listened to classical music, though in the years before that, he had started getting into rock music. It turned out his sister had gotten him the DVD as a joke for his birthday. He watched it and actually liked the music. We watched a bit of it, listened to some of her songs online, and danced to a few of them. He passed away about 10 years ago. I have not been able to listen to Shakira since. Story 64. Razel. If Your Mother Only Knew. Good times at the gym with one of my best friends, Jason Smith. Love you, buddy. Story 65. See You Again by Charlie Puth and Wiz Khalifa came out the same year my cousin died and hit really hard. Story 66. You know the song Graduation by Vitamin C, the Friends Forever song? When I was a child, I went to a dance school. Every year, the graduating seniors from pre-kindergarten through 12th grade had a dedicated dance to that song as a farewell. It was their last real dance for the school. I watched every year, and while it was sad to see them leave, it wasn't until I was a senior myself that I realized how hard it would be to say goodbye. The choreography is ingrained in my mind, and every time the song plays, I want to cry as the dance runs through my head. Story 67. The Celine Dion and Peabo Bryson version of Beauty and the Beast. They play it at the end of the live show at Hollywood Studios at Disney World. Beauty and the Beast is my favorite movie, and my family took a Disney World trip almost every summer. It was the only time of the year when I wasn't being bullied or abused by my mom's side of the family. I actually felt respected, safe, and happy there, which was such a nice change. When I got married, that was the song my husband and I chose for our first dance. We take Disney trips together now. Story 68. Blitzkrieg Bop. Every time I hear it, I am back in my old bedroom playing Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. I forgot which number. I want to think it was 3. Story 69. This Must Be the Place by Talking Heads is one of the best love songs. It reminds me of someone special. Story 70. Lost in the Wood. I can only imagine Sister Time from Elena of Avalor. Providing context would make this more understandable. Story 71. Somewhere Over the Rainbow by Izzy. I sang it to my firstborn daughter all the time, and now she sings it to my 1-year-old. Story 72. Gives You Hell by Aaron Carter. That was one of a few songs on my cousin's MP3 player when we were kids, and I will always associate it with memories of my cousins, my brother, and me spending long summer nights talking in the tent at my grandparents' acreage when we visited. We would be up until 4 a.m., making up silly stories and laughing a lot. Another one is Cherry Wine by Hosier. I found out a woman I was interested in liked that song, so I learned to play it on guitar to impress her, even though the lyrics are about an abusive relationship. It worked, but the relationship ended up going very poorly. She broke my heart badly, and now I do not really like Hosier or playing guitar anymore. Story 73. Leather and Lace. Stevie Nicks and Don Henley. I was at a dance when I was 14. There was a boy there who I had had a crush on for months. This song came on and he asked me to dance. A couple of months later, we started dating. We dated for almost a year, then broke up. But we stayed good friends. 13 years later, I saw him at a dinner. We were both going through divorces. A couple of months later, we were engaged, then married. We have been married 28 years. I still remember dancing with him to this song. Story 74. Robbie Williams, Angels. Robbie Williams, Feel, Better Man soundtrack. Justin Bieber, Anyone. Louis Capaldi, Somebody You Loved. Imagine Dragons, Not Today. Sam Smith, Fire on Fire. And many more. Story 75. Fucking Big Big World by Amelia, 1998. I was 12 years old, and my mom got obsessed with that song. She listened to it for months. Every once in a while, I play it, and I swear I can even smell the different scents of our old house back then. Story 76. 73 men sailed up from the San Francisco Bay, rolled off their ship, and here is what they had to say. We are calling everyone to ride along to another shore. We can laugh our lives away and be free once more. Story 77. I Was Made for Loving You, Kiss. I was less than 5 years old, but it is forever burnt into my brain, associated with a commercial for the red and white swirled candy. I cannot remember the name, but I loved the candy and the song. Story 78. I bought Yellow Cart's Ocean Avenue and Wolfenstein Enemy Territory at the same time, and that was the only album I listened to while playing. Whenever I listen to songs from that album, it brings me back to playing that game for hours each day. Story 79. Supermarket Flowers. I used to listen to the song with my mom in her car when I was younger, around 2018 or 2019. Then, at the end of 2022, when my great-nana June died, we walked into her funeral and Supermarket Flowers started playing. I honestly started crying. This was my first funeral as I couldn't go to my great-granddad's due to COVID-19. Now, I can't listen to Supermarket Flowers without crying. Story 80. Leaving on a jet plane always reminded me of my ex. It was the last time I saw her when she flew home from visiting. We broke up a few months later. Story 81. There are some that have such a strong association with a core memory that I do not want to bring them up right now. But I will always associate Blinding Lights with being alone at home for long stretches during the worst of the pandemic in New York City. Story 82. Must Be Doing Something Right, Billy Currington. Attached to two core memories. 1. Went to Western Swing for almost a year straight with my second ex-girlfriend. That song played a lot and we slow danced to it. Just her and me enjoying each other, never mind everybody else. Took her stargazing in the mountains on a clear summer night with a new moon. We just sat on the hood of my car, staring up into the endless diamond sky, enjoying each other. That song was playing in my head. Sweetest kiss I have ever experienced. Story 83, Shut Up and Dance With Me, was playing on the radio while I watched my dad help hold the ladder steady for my mom to get into the pool. I thought they were growing into such a cute old couple. It was a precious, happy moment. My dad died very unexpectedly in his sleep just a few days later. But every time I hear that song, it brings me back to that day when all was right with the world. Story 84, Mirrors, by Blue Oyster Cult. My best friend and I must have listened to that album 1,000 times. He passed away 2 years ago, and I think of him every time I hear that song or album. Rest in peace, brother. Story 85, Wasting Angels by Post Malone. I remember listening to it a lot in 2022. That year was also the best year of my life. Story 86, 3 Steps to Heaven. In the 1970s, I went to an all-girls school next door to an all-boys school. One day, while I was in science class, I heard someone playing guitar and singing a song. When I looked out, it was a boy from the boys' school I liked. He called over to me and shouted, "Will you go out with me?" I shouted back, "Yes." And then he was dragged off by the janitor. I still remember that song to this day. Story 87, Patsy and I, 1994, Clarence Peer on the waltzer before she returned to Venezuela. Still love you and miss you. Story 88, Warren G. Regulate. I commanded my dad to play this on his cassette or I would scream 100 hello worth of toddler tantrums. I know it word for word as a result. Story 89, I Don't Want to Miss a Thing by Aerosmith. My husband and I had our first slow dance to it at my freshman homecoming. 7 years later, we danced to it at our wedding. You Are My Sunshine. My mom sang it to me and my brother every night growing up. I cried every time because they woke up without their love. Now I sing it to my daughter at night and think of my mom, who passed almost 2 years ago. My Girl by The Temptations. My dad and I have slow danced to it my entire life. He used to sing it and we'd dance around the living room. We also danced to it at my wedding. Story 90, 1979, Smashing Pumpkins. Friends, freedom, sitting around, drinking quietly and telling stories. I am so grateful for those memories. Story 91, Have a Nice Day by Stereophonics. Forever linked to the first time my mother took my brother and me to a proper swimming pool with slides and a massive floating obstacle course. It was playing over the speakers, a good memory from a tricky childhood. Story 92, Bittersweet Symphony was playing when my friend and I confronted our good friend about his toxic relationship. Flying by the Beatles was playing when I was biking down a long winding hill to a beach, picking up speed. Story 93, After graduation night, I walked my high school campus one last time as the sun was rising on Saturday. I got back in my car to hear the Logical Song by Supertramp. Just like that, high school was over. Story 94, Unfinished Sympathy by Massive Attack, 1991. It was that beautiful balmy summer, just like in the video, even though I was in the United Kingdom. I had the single and played it over and over. I was young, 16 or 17. I had my first part-time job. Life was so good, no real worries at all. I spent my days with my friends and my first boyfriend, whom I loved so much. He was a creep, but I didn't know it then. I never got bored of this song, even to this day. The video really captures the early 1990s perfectly for me. Story 95, Our House Was Madness. It was the first song I ever remember liking. I must have been about 6 years old. My taste has changed a lot since then. Story 96, Say Something, A Great Big World. I was sexually abused by my father as a teenager. I would constantly cry for weeks when it happened, and he would ask me what was wrong, as if he did not know what he had done. I would not say a word. I refused to speak for a while. He would play a song and keep asking me what was wrong, and eventually he smacked me because I would not speak to him. Story 97, Adventure of a Lifetime by Coldplay. Anytime I hear it now, I start tearing up because it reminds me of when I was much younger and the joys of my life back then. Story 98, when I got my vasectomy, the doctor wanted to put some music on, so I forever associate Down Under with that procedure. Story 99, Debussy's Afternoon of a Fawn. When we were newlyweds, my wife and I had a long cuddling session to this beautiful song, which was playing on a loop. We just embraced, enjoyed each other's company, and felt content in each other's arms. Story 100. I Swear I Am Not the Devil by Stained reminds me of why I self-harmed in high school. I still hate hearing the song nearly 10 years later. Story 101. Wagon Wheel Original Version came on as I left my mother's burial. I was driving with my wife, my child, and my 2 ex-wives in the car. Rock Me Mama, like a wagon wheel was blasting, and if I die in Raleigh, I will die free. We are all from Raleigh, so it hit hard. I love that memory. I think my mother would have been laughing at how unbelievably awkward and surreal that ride was. Story 102. Daddy's Hands by Holly Dunn. I was in the back seat of my dad's truck when this came on, and I used to love that song. Daddy-daughter sing-along every time. But this time I realized my daddy's hands were not always soft and kind when I was crying. In fact, his hands were hard as steel even when I had not done wrong. Daddy's hands were not always gentle, but I have come to understand how there could always be love in Daddy's hands. Story 103, Mercy Street, Peter Gabriel. It means so much to me and has helped me in the darkest hours. Until I played it to my former therapist who abused me. Now it is packed with trauma. Pro tip: never share a song you extremely love with another person. Never. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.